Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one and done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Good morning, it's Monday, 27th of April, and this is the Brussels Playbook Podcast. The vibe in Brussels today is nightmarish as Europe braces for the economic and political aftershocks of the Iran conflict. And also on the pod, Berlin has a message to Ursula von der Leyen, cut the red tape or else. Plus, there's a plan to revitalise bricks and mortar retail in Brussels, which means shops are going to stay open later and also on Sundays. Hey, it's me, Zoya Sheftalovich. I'm back from Australia.
Yay!
I've had a couple of weeks off and I'm back today. Nick Vinocur is with me today too. Nick, before we get into all of the stuff that we need to talk about today, first off, let's start briefly in Washington, where there was a shooting over the weekend at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And you were there last year, weren't you?
I was there, and that's what makes it sort of very weird and very close. I mean, this is the big politics and media rendezvous of the year in D.C. It's a mix of journalists, politicians, a bit of humor. Not the year I was there because it was boycotted by the president and the comics, but this year Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance all turned out and were in the room when this happened, which really kind of changes the atmosphere completely around this event.
Yeah, totally. And what we heard happened was that there was a shooter who attempted to gain entry to the event. He was stopped nowhere near them. That's the important thing, right, Nick?
It was the floor above. The ballroom is underground, effectively, and the person was stopped on the kind of lobby of the hotel where it usually takes place.
Anyway, look, it was a pretty shocking event. Condemnation poured in from all around the EU. The European Commission president, Ursula von der Leyen, said violence has no place in politics. Antonio Costa called it deeply unsettling, and there were reactions from other politicians as well. Hopefully everyone who was involved is safe, and I think they are.
Indeed, and the event is supposed to be rescheduled within less than a month's time because Trump has this speech that he really wants to give, skewering the media.
Right, Nick, let's get to our first story today. You've just come back from Greece where you were attending the Delphi Economic Forum. Loads of big conversations happening there, and we'll get back to some of those later. But first up, let's go to Athens where the EU's deputy finance ministers are gathering today.
Right. So this is some follow-up from the last week's UCO, where leaders were looking at the fallout from the Iran war, the energy crisis. The deputy finance ministers are being asked to follow up on some of that work and see what they can do to avoid a debt crisis, because the situation all these leaders are in is that they have high deficits and high debt loads left over from the COVID crisis, and now they're having to cushion the blow from this energy crisis with very limited means to do that.
Yeah, and this is something that's really alarming capitals around Europe and in fact around the world, because we're seeing this term coming back to haunt us, stagflation, which is basically where you've got a bunch of stagnating economies. But if you pump money in to try to stimulate them, inflation will go up and people are already dealing with inflation. And that's something that really has been felt. I mean, I'm feeling it myself. I'm sure our listeners are feeling it too. Prices at the shops are going up. Petrol prices are going up. Everything seems to be more expensive, but people are not really feeling a kind of benefit from, higher economic gains, from, higher salaries, etc. So it's very, very dangerous. And we've seen the Commission warn capitals that they shouldn't indiscriminately just pump money into subsidies for things like energy, because the concern is that that will just have the opposite effect of what is intended and increase inflation. So that's a real worry. And this has people really concerned. Germany and Italy, they're downloading their growth forecasts. You have also spoken to actually the EU's economy commissioner, Valdis Dombrovskis, who was in Delphi, and he sounded pretty worried.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of pretty frank about it. He said, we are in this stagflation crisis. It's not so much something that we are worried about. It's now happening. And the tools we had, like you were saying, are really limited. He said, do expect the EU to downgrade its full year growth forecast. The growth is not spectacular to begin with, but now it's going to get slashed even more. And he also said, this started as an energy crisis, high fuel prices, and now it's spreading across the economy into different parts. So you talked about, stimulation and a lot of cash. These governments simply don't have enough money. They don't have the means to do this. And we can see the policymakers holding their fire and saying, we're not going to do big stimulus efforts to push more money into the economy because effectively we don't have the margins to do that. So they're really stuck. And of course, the blowback is political and there's a risk for leaders.
And the risk is that you've got various parties, the far left, far right parties across Europe, really picking up votes. And there's this key election in France in the summer of 2027. That's the presidential election. Emmanuel Macron cannot run in that election because he's capped in his terms. And so there is a real expectation that Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally may actually come to power, whether that's with Le Pen as the president or with Jordan Bardella, who is her kind of stand-in should she not be able to run. It is a real fear, and the idea behind some of these measures that Dombrovskis is talking about is to kind of cut some of the oxygen out of that rising far right.
Yep. We also have a big state election coming up in Germany in September in Saxony-Anhalt, where the AfD is poised to make big gains. So, we kind of had lost that sort of populist alert, and now it's really coming back into the fore. I caught up with the head of the European Economic and Social Committee who's sort of tracking the mood, and he says the problem with this is that it's really affecting day-to-day people, regular people. It's digging into pocketbooks. He called it an income shock. And of course, that's something that feeds right into the ballot box.
Yeah, and so we're already seeing these concerns rising around the EU. There's going to be a few sessions at the European Parliament's voting plenary in Strasbourg this week where they're going to talk about this. There's this big debate on the next EU budget in the plenary tomorrow, and that's going to be setting out Parliament's position, and likely that's going to reopen that frugal versus spenders divide.
Absolutely. What this does is that it exacerbates all the tensions in the EU between North and South, and the big debate is, do we continue to fund this big defense rearmament, or do we need to use whatever means we have to shield the economies? And the southern states are, slamming on the brakes and saying, no, we need to shield our consumers and our businesses rather than continue with this big defense push. And of course, the other side is saying, no, there's no going back on this.
Yeah, especially because, there's the kind of mental divide between the frugals and the spenders, but there is also the geographic divide because obviously the southern states are pretty far from Russia, whereas the Baltics, the Nordics are quite concerned about the fact that they could be looking down the barrel of an invasion sometime soon.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nick, we were just talking about Germany's economy taking another hit from this latest energy crisis in the fallout from the Iran war. But of course, it's not new. Germany's been in the economic doldrums for a while, and the pressure on Berlin is now starting to spill over into Brussels. So Ursula von der Leyen, she's in Berlin today, where she'll speak at a meeting of the CDU-CSU parliamentary group in the Bundestag. We don't know what she's going to say, but we sort of know what she's going to hear.
This is a really interesting one. This is kind of like her going to headquarters, effectively, right? We forget about it, but she's a CDU politician to begin with. And this is the most powerful faction in the EPP group. They have real power to kind of influence her or put pressure on her. So what's going on there? They're increasingly frustrated with Brussels. They're warning about overregulation, red tape, the pace of economic reform. Our colleague in Berlin, Oliver Neuen, has seen a draft strategy paper with 27 demands aimed at the Commission.
Yeah, and that draft is quite extraordinary. It is really a very aggressive document. Basically, what they want is for the Commission to be faster and deeper when it comes to cutting EU regulation. They want to scale back the EU's institutional powers. They want to cut staff numbers. And like the most stark one is that they want a new oversight body that would be able to veto Commission legislation.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And this is also something that we'd scooped a couple weeks ago. A bunch of countries, including Germany, urging the commission to cut back its staff by 2,000 staffers in the upcoming budget. They're really sort of reining in. I would make one point. There are no plans to build anything in these proposals. This is all about unwinding stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are actually, they're almost impossible because it requires treaty change. It's very, very difficult to achieve some of the things that the CDU wants. But I think it's less about whether or not they can achieve these demands, these goals, and more about the message that they're sending by making them. Because I think that part of the reason why you've got the CDU writing a document like this is to demonstrate that they are on side with the people, that they want to cut red tape, they're on side with businesses. And I think that's, again, one of those moves designed to take some of the wind out of the sails of the AFD, which is nipping at the CDU's heels. And the CDU has been sort of tanking in popularity. So I think this is just another way of trying to re-seize the momentum.
It's another case of kind of tail wagging the dog, where the AFD is in a way kind of setting the agenda and setting this kind of skeptical tone for the CDU. And as you said, Merz deeply unpopular. I think I saw a poll where he's at 21% approval rating in Germany, one of the lowest rated EU leaders at the moment.
Yeah, and of course, Merz is doing something that is an age-old kind of tactic of national politicians, where you try to shift some of the blame for some of the problems in your own country onto Brussels. But what's unusual about this is that Ursula von der Leyen is the CDU's woman in Brussels. So it's quite an unusual dynamic playing out. And we're going to see a pretty interesting joint press conference later today between Ursula von der Leyen as well as Jens Spahn, who's the CDU-CSU parliamentary leader, and also Alexander Hoffmann, who's the deputy parliamentary leader and the chairman of the CSU. Nick, this one is one I am so excited about because I am constantly finding myself finishing work and realizing that all the shops are closed. Brussels shops are going to be staying open later, and plus they're going to be open on Sundays pretty soon. So it's pretty exciting news.
Very exciting news. And I was sharing my excitement to the cashier at my local supermarket, and I promptly got a little lesson in the ills of capitalist society and how this was a terrible thing. I said, okay, to each their own.
Yeah, I think what we found is the dichotomy of views on this particular topic. So basically what's happening is that the government is going to be getting rid of a rule that forces shops to close at least one day a week and also forces them to close at 8 p.m. most other days. And the idea is to help stores that are bricks and mortar retailers compete with online retail, where obviously they never close. So the idea is to kind of allow basically the Belgian taxman to collect retail earnings and to make sure that they're getting a cut of the pie, really, if we're talking about it. But of course, there is this kind of idea of like, okay, well, what happens to the people who have to man those stores on those days when they normally would not have done that previously?
Yeah, and we've seen the retail workers raising some concerns. They're worried about the longer shifts, more evening and potential Sunday work. Aldi staff have been striking over possible Sunday openings. And let's say this isn't even yet in force. It's been approved by the Belgian government, but it's not yet law. It's part of a coalition deal that now needs to go through Belgian parliament approval. I mean, before this is in place, it could be, the 2040s, but
no, we're expecting to enter. We're expecting it to enter into force this summer. I'm so hopeful, Nick, because there is nothing like a little bit of retail therapy for me, and sadly, not a lot of options considering the opening times. But maybe this is a sign of the direction of travel, because this is a complaint that people have in cities around Europe. It's not just a Brussels problem; it's also a problem in other cities where a lot of stores are not open on a Sunday, so it's difficult for people to do their weekly shop just on that one Saturday. Those shops are pretty crowded.
I think people should message in and tell us what they think about this.
I would love to hear from folks. Let's hear from people on our WhatsApp line. Link is in the show notes. Let us know. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you going to miss the blissful quiet of everything being shut on a Sunday?
The day of contemplation.
Day of contemplation and of rest. Not for us though, Nick. All right. There's a big celebration in the Netherlands today. It's King Willem-Alexander's birthday, and also known as King's Day.
Finally.
You've been waiting all year for this. 364 days you've been saving up your orange outfits. You're really ready to rock.
Every single thing on me is orange right now, if you could only see.
Listeners, it's true, and it's a good shade on you, Nick. Folks, that's about it from us today. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a review. We've been stuck on 676 reviews on Spotify for ages, Nick. I like to refresh that counter, and it's not enough, frankly. Come on, people. We know thousands of you are listening. Leave us a rating.
Yeah, let's get that to 3 digits.
Let's get it to 4 digits, Nick. There's a reason why you are not a mathematician.
Oh my God. Someone pull the plug.
All right, I'm going to pull the plug now. Save you from your misery. That's it from us today. You'll be hearing from us tomorrow again.
But yeah, we're I don't know what to say.
We're sad and tired. We're hungry. We need to pee.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.